Have you now?
You're fulfilling your destiny.
Show me again the power of the darkness.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll. D20radio.com.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains, to the Knights of Ren, episode 109. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, and it's so exciting because we officially had the pre-release weekend, so we got our hands on product, we got to play the game, roll the dice, trade some cards, and we are so excited to talk about it. So welcome this week, Jay and Rick, to the show. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, dude, great.
Good, okay. So earlier this week, Fantasy Flight released an article and a video, and Jay, you had a couple of thoughts on that.
So yeah, we finally got the how to play video, which one thing that's really great about Fantasy Flight is they have really well made like video tutorials that they have voice acting and they have like effects, and they zoom in on cards and try to make sure explicitly you understand like each step of the way. And when I talked to Lucas at the event at Worlds, he told me like, yeah, I personally wrote it and scripted it out. And what's cool about this tutorial specifically is it's similar to the demos that they were giving out at the event, where it goes through 2 turns between both players. And throughout the cards played, it organically teaches you every die face in the game, which is really neat and is just a nice like introduction of like, these are all the effects. And I really like how it shows you organically instead of like listing or some of the other methods that some others use. He did a good job of like making it feel like an actual match, and like Rey plays Jedi robes, and that gives her the focus side. Focus side does this. Like, it was just really neat how it happened, as it went along. A couple of people have noticed that there are a couple of small inconsistencies in the video. Namely, in the actual game, you pick your hand and you do your mulligan before you roll initiative. And in the video, it swaps that, and they solve initiative first. I do believe that to some extent, to sort of get the ball rolling and get people like sort of introduced to the game, I wouldn't be surprised if the intent of that was just like, if you're brand new to the game, you don't know how to evaluate your hand, whether or not you want to go first necessarily anyway. So I don't think that's too much of a stretch. We all want our tutorials and stuff to explain things as clearly as possible. I still think it does a very good job.
I think it was the next logical step after talking about the character dice. Like, you bring your character's dice to the game, that sort of thing, and then you roll it to see who gets initiative. I think that's more what happened there anyway. Just as the next logical step for the video itself,
Yeah, and remember, it's like, it's to get your feet wet, just like the starters are. It runs through 2 turns. And then, conveniently, it starts to talk about the rules of deck building, which is also what the article extrapolated into. And we wanted to talk a little bit about some things to remember as you're trying to make decks out of your lists right now. One thing that I have to say, be careful, and this is kind of a deck building and also just a general play rule. Obviously, it's very exciting to get like those 2-cost upgrades into play as quickly as possible before you throw your dice in the field and, hopefully get the tempo and damage advantage. But one thing that I constantly run into, especially playing villains sometimes, as they tend to have, although not exclusively, the pay to deal damage sides, although as we've seen more hero cards like Hired Gun and Leia also have those. But oftentimes you'll snap on a bunch of upgrades, but you won't afford yourself enough resources to actually use those like pay to hit sides, and sometimes you'll lose out on large chunks of damage. So sometimes it's better to maybe roll a different character, or try to spread out your actions and not be so quick to spend your 2 resources. It's really tempting I do it all the time, trying to like, all right, I've got an F11, drop it on a Stormtrooper, and I can't do anything. Great. So, like, let your resources breathe. Earlier in the match, you can kind of like, I don't want to say slow play, but just sometimes if you're like going into a round and you already have an upgrade or two, and you're using like a character like Kylo, who needs resources to hit hard. Sometimes, like, even though you're sitting on that lightsaber and you have 3, you might want to roll out and maybe do what you can with what you have. I mean, there's a lot of factors to it, but just remember, like, resource starving yourself for equipment sometimes doesn't lead to damage and actually puts you behind.
Yeah, and speaking of upgrades and dice in general in your deck building, personally, I like to stick to a 15-15 split. 15 dice producers and then 15 of everything else in your deck. Just in the games that I've played on in testing, it seems like the person that gets off to the dice advantage first has a very strong chance of winning after that point. It's not a hard cap for me. I've definitely built decks with less than 15 dice in there, but I like to kind of, in my initial build, kind of stick to that 15-15 split. Has that been the same for you guys as well?
Well, it depends on the deck. So for more control-y decks, I'm probably like 12-18. So my 12 dice will be... So most of the control decks I'm playing are involved with like Qui-Gon Jinn and Finn. The dice are usually lots of shields from like diplomatic immunity, force protection, things like that. And then the other cards are the removal of some sort, or like a second chance or something. Whereas like an aggro deck, I feel like I'm running maybe 16, 17 dice, 13 cards, and the cards in my hand are more or less resource and like equipment, stuff like that.
You seen the same thing in yours, Jay?
Trying to think specifically of the decks I've made recently. I tend to throw them all onto the table. Like, I usually have like 18 cards I want 2 ofs, and then I start paring them down, and like maybe this card's a little more situational and I can run one of it and maybe knock down like a legendary. But sometimes, I want to see it fairly quickly. I wouldn't say I have a hard and fast rule. I tend to notice I throw like 100 upgrades into my deck and go, all right, I don't think I can run all of these, and shave it off from there. Yeah, I try to pay close attention to things like, I really like a lot of the color synergistic cards. Like, I really like Infamous. I really like Armed to the Teeth. I really like It's a Trap. And so I try to make sure that my deck actually can like take advantage of those cards fairly often. Like, if you're using Infamous, you want a good half of your deck to be able to activate that. If you have Infamous, you want to assume that you can play it on turn 1 and almost reliably trigger it every round. And so if you're not running enough yellow to support that, maybe it's not the card that you need. Same thing for like No Mercy and things like that. So I do like that the game like has favorable like red synergy. Ooh, a good example is I've been trying to use Hit or Run a lot, and in some of my decks, like I will do like I was running Leia Finn. Leia just kept getting blown away, and then I'd have these hit and runs I can't use in my hand because I draw them late. So you gotta be careful and remember, like, some of these color specific cards might become dead. Are you okay with that? Should you do more to make sure that doesn't happen? So always keep that in mind.
Yeah, I tend to, even on the half of the deck or so that is the non-upgrade side, I tend to lean more heavily on dice manipulation events and support cards that don't provide dice. So even on that 15 or so non-dice cards, probably half or more of those are going to be things like electroshock and deflects, stuff like that I can use to influence my opponent's rolls or my rolls to help make them better.
I cannot tell you how disappointing it is to want to play an electroshock with no yellow character to spot. That is the worst. Where you're just like, I'm going to play electroshock to save the day. And then your opponent's like, do you have a yellow character? Not yes, that was a very disappointing
Yeah.
turn of events. It would have won me the game if I could have electroshocked away the extra +2 damage. That sucks.
Yeah, definitely want to keep the spot like Jay was mentioning. Keep that in mind. Don't go crazy with spot a red character when you're just running one trooper as your only red, first order trooper as your only red.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, then he has a tendency to die quickly, especially when he's soaking damage with Guardian or whatever, right? Best defense, things like that. And then you're stuck with a handful of spot a red character when you don't have a red character anymore. So
yeah.
Definitely something to look at. I know Team Covenant, when they posted their deck building guidelines in there, they said that you want everything in your deck to move towards a certain plan. And that's obviously true, right? You don't want to put too much just random things into your deck that aren't going to help you move to what you want to do. And that goes with things like shields and stuff like that, where shields are almost always useful. If you're not running a Qui-Gon deck, you don't want to pack your deck full of shields. Or if you're not trying to make it to the late game and a mill strategy or something like that, you don't want to have just too much shields to where you can't do enough damage to actually finish off your opponent.
So with all the talk about deck building, all the excitement, we got to go to quite a few events. I went to an event on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Jay went to a couple this weekend, and Rick went to his today. So why don't you guys, Jay, why don't you let us know a little bit about your event, people you met. Did you get any good pulls, any good trades? Tell us your stories.
All right. So on Friday, I got to check out Eudaimonia, which is a nice little store in Berkeley. They're pretty cool in that they have this nice extra space that's separate from their main shop. So whenever they have an event or a tournament or whatever, you get to be sort of isolated from the general crowd and all the standard noise going on. They are an internet cafe, so there tends to be a lot of stuff happening. So it was really neat to find out that all 24 slots were filled, and everyone, gleefully grabbed their starters, and we sat around and tried out the starters. They didn't let us dive into patches just yet. So I got to meet Chud, one of our moderators from the Discord. He drove out, and it was really cool to meet him. He's a super nice guy. He beat me in our first starter match, but he mostly does the rounds on the Discord, playing the starters over and over again. So I feel like that matchup was weighted in his favor.
Yeah, he has been, just saying, hey, anybody want to learn the game? I'm open to teach you with starter matches, all day long.
Yeah, he's a great dude. So shout out to him. But yeah, a lot of people showed up. My girlfriend, a couple of coworkers, some buddies from Conquest, looking to see if maybe Destiny is the next thing for them. And then there's a local group of guys who work on a cool game called Lab Mayhem, which is it's a collectible card game that they do. And they came as a group and tried it out. And I kind of expected a lot of my friends to see it and think this is neat. I appreciate it. I'm glad I tried it. A lot of them had said Star Wars wasn't one of their favorite things. So I kind of expected them. I actually expected them to come up to me and be like, do you want to buy my stuff? But nearly all of them actually went and bought the packs and opened stuff and got really excited and were trading and trying to make their own little decks work. And yeah, the turnout and the sort of the electricity of the room was high, to the point where I was slightly overwhelmed that I knew 11 people at this event. Plus I was trying to teach my girlfriend, and she was meeting a lot of my friends for the first time. So I had a hard time jumping around table to table, playing myself, and being able to give them all a little bit of attention, which I also thought would hamper their enjoyment of the game, because I've been talking this game up so much. But the game, did everything on its own, and it was really fantastic. As far as pulls went, I feel like I stole all of Chud's cards, because he cracked his 6, and he got some cool stuff, but he didn't get a legendary. And then I cracked my 6, and I got Force Choke and Launch Bay. I was like, oh, that was lucky. And then Christina bought me her allotment because she's awesome, and I opened those, and I got Thermal Detonator, and I got Phasma, which she was really excited about. And then my other friend, who was surprised at how much he liked the game, he was like, I'm really glad you told me about this event. I think this game's awesome. I don't want to start my own collection, but here. And he just handed me his allotment of packs and said, like, Merry Early Christmas. So shout out to Kevin, because you're the best. And I cracked those packs, and inside was a Kylo lightsaber. And what else did I get? Oh, actually, Christina had the Kylo lightsaber. The thermal came in this one. I ended up with 2 Kylo lightsabers, but all in all, out of 18 packs, which is half a box, I already got 6 legendaries. So I really beat the tar out of the odds there.
No joke.
And then I went on to Outflank Games on Saturday, which is this really nice new little shop in Fairfield that they've only been around for 2 months, but even though they're a bit of a trek away, I really look forward to hanging out at this store. Shout out to Brian. This is one of the nicer little shops I've seen in a while, and he's a super cool dude. And there again, that time Chud beat me to that event, and he brought his friends, and so out of the 18 packs they cracked, he managed to snag 2 legendaries, which isn't the best ratio, but he has a couple to show for himself. But then once again, as if somehow I'm like, I am a dirty, bounty hunter, I cracked my 6, and inside them were 2 more legendaries. And I just feel like I'm cheating at this point. I was pretty happy that I was able to trade off one of my Kylo's lightsabers and a First Order Stormtrooper to a nice guy named Simon, who had opened a Commanding Presence, which was one of the legendaries I've really been on the hunt for. And we happily made that trade. And then my buddy, who's just getting into the game, Sean, who also went to both events, he was my ride to Outflank Games. He had a black 1, and I am not convinced, like everyone else, that this card is bad in any sense. So I'm eager to make some lists work for it and make it work for me. So I was happy to trade him a couple of rares to get that off his hands and beef up his deck. I actually beefed up his deck so hard that when we played in casual games, it was literally like a complete constructed deck versus like barely more than a starter, and he just wiped the floor with me. He was pretty happy because he managed to open Veers and Django, and then he got another Veers off me, and he had a Django from the day before, and I traded him a jetpack and a flamethrower and some other cool stuff. And yeah, he was really excited, and I helped him beef up his list. I gave him so many cards, he's like, all right, when I get another legendary you want, it's pretty much yours. So I have another legendary coming down the line whenever he gets more packs.
You got to stop this, man.
I have 10 out of the 17 I'm missing, so I can't complain. Didn't get that Vader, but I heard the first pack opened on site when the guy started the event, because we were late, but he let people buy their stuff a little early. The very first pack opened at their place was Vader, and that kid was really happy.
I bet. All right, so Rick, tell us a little bit about your experience this weekend.
So I had some family in town this weekend, so I wasn't able to get to the first event in my area. But Sunday, today, I went to Zahabi's in Ashburn, Virginia, and I knew the event was starting at about 1 o'clock. According to the Facebook post, but I decided I wanted to get up there a little early. They open at noon, and I was there a couple minutes before, and there was already a line waiting for people to get in for the Destiny pre-release, which was a good sight for me. We got in. They had a limit of 6 packs per customer, which I liked as well, because make sure everybody can, the full 24 that signed up were able to get their full allotment of packs. Nobody was able to get too many more than anyone else. So we were pretty much full on that. I think at the end of the day, there was 1 starter left unsold when I left there maybe an hour before they were finishing up. So it's a good sign for the game. A couple of friends of mine that I knew from the Star Wars LCG were there. I didn't even know that they were interested in the game, so that was cool. Sat down, picked up my Rey starter and my packs. I got 4 for start just to make sure that, you know, everybody could get some that wanted more. You know, because I'm definitely going to be getting a couple more boxes come the release date. Opened those up, got a Phasma and Django and a couple of other things, then decided later that I definitely wanted to get my other 2 packs for the full allotment. So when I got there, got like a Padawan or something out of those, but definitely good pulls for you know, my first couple packs. And the pack opening addiction is real. So it's been a while since I was able to or that I was playing a game that, you know, a collectible game where you're opening packs, and I forgot how much fun it was to crack those open and peek in there and see what your rare and legendaries were. So I sat down, played a starter game against one of my LCG friends, played Rey against his Kylo deck. I was able to beat him pretty handedly after getting the dice advantage on him my first turn. I had 2 upgrades on the table, and he was having a little bit of trouble with his resources. But then he wanted to play with his deck that he had built, because he was able to get to the other event on Friday. So he had, you know, a pretty decked out 30-card deck, you know, with a couple of copies of Mind Probe and Immobilize and things like that in there. And I was like, well, I don't know if I got enough to build a 30-card deck. So the Padawan and Rey and Finn magically added up to 30, so I was good there. And I started looking through all the other cards in the packs, and I had exactly 10 cards to add, or that I could add, that were legal for the deck that I was playing, but they weren't necessarily cards that I would add to a deck. But it was fun because, I mean, I was able to keep up with them. I was playing, you know, cards that I didn't think were really great, but they definitely had points in the game where they were useful, which is a good design point for the game, that, you know, not everything is, you know, great and flashy, but they all seem to have a use in the in, you know, edge cases and things like that. So that was fun. So he ended up winning. It was pretty close though. I was able to knock out a Night Sister before he was able to take down my crew. But after that, took some time to teach some new players with some starter deck games again, which was always fun, being able to teach people new to a game that hadn't been following it as closely as a lot of the other people have there. Sat down, went over a couple games, didn't take too long, had a real close game with another new player, kind of boiled down to, in the end, rolling about 5 dice with Rey, showing maybe a total of 11 damage total. And he was like, well, I got this card, the Disturbance in the Force. Would that be good right now? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. So he paid his resource, and I rolled my dice and ended up with like 4 blanks, a resource, a plus resource, not even an actual resource, and a discard. And I was like, yeah, that turned out pretty good for you. But I ended up taking that. I had 1 health left on Rey at the end of that game, and Finn had already hit the back to tank after getting sliced in the back by Kylo. So it was fun. He had a lot of fun. He enjoyed it a lot. He bought his full allotment of 6-packs, and he was opening them up, and, you know, I had the excitement of opening up a Han in front of me, and that was pretty fun. So yeah, that was about it. It was great to have the cards and dice in my hand. A lot of people showed up that I didn't know were interested in it. You know, 3-time world champion for X-Wing was there. So I'm sure my regional is going to be a little difficult coming up next year.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. I was glad that we sold out at the event. It's a good sign for the game. It seems like Jay, all his events sold out as well, right?
Yeah, both events, I believe. I know for sure Eudaimonia sold out. I think Flank might have like been 20, which is still like a really good turnout. Lots of people there. I had a pretty funny moment in one of my matches. The guy that I traded the Kylo Saber and the First Order Stormtrooper 2, we had this little mini best of 3. I was running Phasma Kylo Trooper myself, and He took me out in the first round. I didn't really manage to get anything going, and he just dropped TIE Fighter into another TIE Fighter. And he just had way more things to do than I could respond. And then I got him round 2. And amusingly in that match, my Kylo was sitting at 10 damage, and I had Enrage in my hand. And I was very, very tempted to kill off my own Kylo for that $1, for that resource. But I decided him spending the resources on it would have been more beneficial for me to take the game. But I was tempted to just be like, Kylo's like, nope, taking myself out. You don't do credit. And then the last match came down to a pretty cool showdown where he knocked out my Phasma and my Stormtrooper, but I knocked out his Kylo fairly quickly. And it was a showdown between one of his Stormtroopers with an F-11 rifle, the other Stormtrooper with a generic lightsaber, and then my Kylo with his own lightsaber, and then in his other hand, a regular lightsaber, and just tons of damage flying back and forth, and lots of removals. And I had a really gross, like, 1 lightsaber plus 3 lightsaber plus 2 lightsaber roll, and he disturbance me, and his misses turned into hits, and my dice turned to junk, but my Kylo still managed to smack them down, and that was a really fun little showdown.
Yeah. I was happy enough to walk away with trades. I got the one thing going in. I knew that I wanted to at least walk away with 1 electroshock. I was able to trade one of my friends for electroshock for a hidden in shadow. Everybody seems to be happy hidden in shadowing their Night Sisters so they can re-roll, once a turn for free. So that was good. I really love that card. So that made my day. So how about you, Sugi? What was your events?
So I hit 3. Friday was by far the shortest. So I went to a Cool Stuff Inc. during my lunch break real quick. Got in line, I don't know, like 20 minutes before the event. A bunch of people showed up afterwards. They opened the store and they didn't have any limits on anything. They just basically asked us to be nice and considerate to the folks behind us. So the first 4 of us essentially got 1 of each starter and decided to just buy half a box instead of a whole box for each of the first 4 of us. So I was able to sit down, crack a few packs, meet some friends. I met Technical and Earlife from our Discord channel, so shout outs to them. Really cool guys. We just kind of chatted real quick. I did meet Jason from the Chance Cube. We got a picture together you may or may not have seen on our Facebook page. Just said hi to a bunch of guys and then ran back to work. So that was Friday. Saturday was actually my longest day. So I took the day off work to play Destiny in the morning and then spend time with my wife in the evening. And basically the line for this cool stuff on Saturday was astronomical. So the first guy in line was there 8:30 in the morning for an 11 o'clock launch. I got there like 9:45 and I'm like 7th in line. So I know I'm going to be able to get product. Even if there's a limit, I'll be fine. And then over, the next hour, just a ton of people show up. So they let us in. They limited the product to 1 starter, or 1 and 1 for each starter, on top of 12 packs as your limit. So of course, the first 12 of us each buy 12 packs and just knock out 4 booster boxes like that. So of course they make the announcement, hey, we're out of boosters, and a bunch of people left, and then some more people came in and play starters, and then they sold out of starters and everything in about 15 minutes. So those of us who actually got product, we sit down, start cracking packs, and then those of us who had been to Friday and Saturday, we started to build decks. Mind you, they were not good, but they were fun. They were bare bones. Like, I happen to have this 1 Dooku, this 1 Phasma, and a Trooper, so I guess I'll run DPT. And you have like no cards to support it. You have no lightsabers, no nothing. But who cares? It's fun. So we all threw these really, slightly decent but not great decks together and played games, and it was so much fun. Even without a fully fleshed out deck, we were laughing. There were all kinds of weird interactions, and it was a bunch of fun. There was an actual like Pokemon event happening. So Pokemon Sun and Moon also came out this weekend. So there were a bunch of trading card players there because there was a Pokemon TCG release, and there was a Pokemon tournament where the winner would get a 3DS and Pokemon Sun or Moon of their choice. So basically in between rounds, people are just kind of hanging out talking, and all of the Destiny players are on one side of the room. So all these Pokemon players are coming over watching us, asking like, hey, what is this? What's this game about? And we're like, hey, it's Star Wars, it's Destiny. We show them how it works, kind of go over the fundamentals, and then they'd call the round, and so they'd go back and play. But a bunch of them kept coming back in between rounds and like watching us play, asking us questions. A lot of them were asking like, can they buy the product and play with us? And we're like, unfortunately, no. The game will launch in 2 weeks. And so there was a lot of people. There was also a Magic event going on too. So we got some Magic players, Pokemon players, people who'd never seen Destiny, not only asking questions, but actively wanting to play and buy product. Some people were switching out decks with them so they could like sit down and play because, you know, they got eliminated early on. So it was really fun to see not only the Destiny community, you know, finally meeting each other, finally, you know, playing games. I played some games against Earlife. We had a bunch of fun. And then, you know, we split up and I met some other friends. We played games, and it's bigger than just us. And that was the coolest thing, is people who had no idea what this game was were totally interested, because there's like, you know, 20 guys, girls just hanging out playing Destiny. And they're like, hey, what is that? So Saturday was a bunch of fun. Sunday was a very short event for me. It was kind of similar to Friday. I came in, bought some packs, played like half a game, and then I had to head out to take care of some business and whatnot. But once again, there were more people who were listening to us. So like shout out to Rex from the FFG Orlando Meta Facebook page. Met a bunch of people who like listened to the podcast. The owner of the store actually just followed the page. So he was talking to me about, you know, the show and the game. So it was great. Technical was there as well. He was there everywhere. He went to like every release in the city. It was hilarious. But we all just sat together, cracking packs, talking about strategies. There were a lot of newer players, so there were lots of questions about, you know, how does this card work? How does this interaction work? Do you recommend this? And it was really refreshing to, you know, once again, like Rick was saying, there was a little bit of teaching and discussion and a lot of community just sitting around, not really playing the game, but we're still interacting as a part of the game, talking about it. And then, of course, some people saw us playing. You know, a couple of board gamers come over and they're like, what's this? And once again, we tell them all about the game and they get excited. Somebody had an extra starter deck, and so they sat down with them, played a starter deck game, and that, you know, this guy's eyes lit up. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm playing as Kylo Ren. Like, you know, he just got really excited. And so, you know, the energy was super high. It was a blast. It was just one of my favorite experiences ever in a card game, just because of how friendly people were, how inviting people were. You know, people who knew a lot, people who knew nothing. We were all just sitting around talking about, you know, Star Wars events, what we thought about films, just all kinds of things. And it's really neat to see people of all ages coming together from all forms of life, talking about this game. And everyone is so friendly about it. So I'm super excited about the launch. We're already planning events and all kinds of stuff. I had some really great trades. Speaking of which, you guys are talking about all your good stuff. I've wanted Luke Skywalker really bad. I know he's not super popular right now, but one of my buddies pulled him, and he was like, I hate this card. I'm never running this card. I don't even want this card. So I was like, I will trade you for it. He's like, what do you got? And so he traded me a launch bay for the Luke Skywalker, so I'm very okay with that. I was very happy with that interaction. And the other trade he got from me was, I traded him my Akbar, and I got his Holocron. So I now have a playset of Holocron, and I'm really excited about that. But I mean, even in the trading, some people, like I traded the DL Heavy Blaster for an Amidala. Somebody didn't have any rares I wanted, but he had a bunch of uncommons. So we just traded out, you know, uncommon for uncommon. It's really interesting because, you know, similar to my old Magic days, the trading experience was more than just trading. We talked about like what decks we wanted to use these cards with. We talked about, you know, what we were really excited about. We talked about, you know, this guy was like super hating on Luke. It was really funny. He was just like talking horribly about this card. And then when I traded him for the launch bait, he was like, he told me all the reasons he's excited, all the ways he plans on playing it. And it was just really fun that the trading experience wasn't just, all right, here's my card, here's your card. It was like a story being told about why he didn't like Luke, why he wanted mine, how this is going to help him. And then his buddy was like, yeah, I love this card. I'm really excited because it did this in this game. And so like these pocket stories kind of interlapped amongst all the players, because we just started talking about stories about cards based on trades, and someone would come in and be like, hey, I'm trading this, and someone would trade with that guy, and then we'd hear stories about the trade and how the card was played against them, and it was great. My experiences were totally amazing. It was so much fun. I really hope everyone gets a chance to, if you didn't get to go to an event, go to the launch, meet new people, just enjoy this game on so many levels. I mean, it's going to be so much fun. Also, in regards to trading, right now, there's really a wild market when it comes to like the price of cards. And people are asking, what's a card worth? Especially during trades, like what's this value to you? How much would you pay? And consistently, I would have to say it's not really relevant, with the exception of like, don't trade a Vader for a common card. That's not a fair trade. But like, trading the Luke Skywalker for the launch bay, I liked the Luke, he liked the launch bay. We don't know how much money they're worth, but we were both extremely happy with the trade. So, for those of you listening, do a little research on your cards. I wouldn't recommend trading, a rare for a common or a common for a legendary. Stay within the same rarity bracket as best as you can. But since there's not really a price point, if you're happy with a trade, go for it. If, you're not interested in that and you're not comfortable with a trade, definitely say no. There's no pressure to take a trade that someone's offering you. But the biggest thing is have fun. It's a wonderful experience if you're enjoying it. And so, I mean, what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's more about, how it's going to help the two people out on it right now. There's not like, the value isn't really set yet. I mean, right now it's very limited product out there in the world, so eBay is going to go crazy with the prices until the launch date goes, and just don't pay too much attention to $75 Vaders and $50 Poes and things like that. That will even out. As long as the people involved in the trade are happy with the trade, and it's going to help both of them out, and they're willing to do the trade, that's the best trade, right? It's not about, this card's worth $75. I want $75 worth of stuff. We don't really know what these cards are worth yet, right? Until the secondary market fleshes out, they're worth exactly what you think they're worth. Like when Jay's trading, 4 rares for a legendary, to Jay, those 4 rares were not worth as much as that legendary was worth to him. So it was a good trade for him. It was a great trade for his friend who gets to flesh out his deck, right?
Always remember too that like a lot of trading, especially in your personal communities, this has much less to do with like online trading, which I have less experience in. But when you're trading in your local communities with people that that you like have fun playing with and want to see around, like there's usually no harm if you're the guy sitting on a large collection and you're trading with a new guy who only cracked a couple packs. Like I've always been an advocate that generosity goes a long way in building strong bonds and getting people to come back and want to play around. And you can usually, like, if you're really trying to target something off of a player that you really want that'll make your deck stronger, usually it doesn't hurt to throw in a little extra. When I made the trade with the Kylo Saber, I threw in the First Order Stormtrooper, and I think I threw in a weapon too, and just trying to be like, hey, I hope to see you again. This has been fun. And like, obviously, people want as much value as they can get out of stuff, but always remember that like sometimes when you make a good trade with someone, they'll remember you, and they'll, either pay it forward or, hook you up back or whatever.
So something we definitely wanted to talk about, the decks we saw, the decks we built, the stuff we played with and against. I built 3 and I think I played against 6, and there was a lot of weird, fun, crazy stuff. So, like, what were some of the fun things you guys saw at your events? You just really enjoyed.
So I didn't really get too much into the deck building this weekend. Like I said, I my packs didn't go too well with my starter, so I just basically grabbed 10 cards that would actually be legal in the deck and threw them in there, and again was pleasantly surprised with how much there was. But again, it's like starting with a starter, a sealed deck in Magic, where you see things that you're not really that you didn't really expect to be good, right? So
at a couple tables, I saw people slotting in like General Grievous, like fits really well into the Kylo starter. I traded away a Dooku that immediately hit the table, and my buddy who had like the Jango Veers set up. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people struggled trying to get something going. A lot of people didn't open characters or didn't open characters for the allegiance that they picked their starter for, which was a little rough.
I got to see quite a couple weird decks. So today, the weirdest one I played was actually today. It was Double Akbar, Hired Gun, and Padawan. That deck was really annoying because not only was there a lot of health to chunk through, but I saw Second Chance, Millennium Falcon, and Launch Bay played against me. So that was a very tough game. But the deck was very interesting in its mechanical functionality. I had a friend who played Luke Skywalker. He pulled double Luke, so he did double Luke and Padawan. That deck was a nightmare because I was running Dooku Phasma Trooper, and I kid you not, three turns in a row, or 3 rounds in a row, he rolled double 3 damage from Luke. And that was exceptionally painful because I had 2 electroshocks in my hand, with Finn being alive no, I'm sorry, that was a different game. What was it? So with Dooku Phasma Trooper, he rolled 6, 6, and 6. And so he essentially killed what was left of my Stormtrooper and then killed Phasma. And there was nothing I could do about it. It was extremely powerful.
Yeah, I don't think there's much you can do about somebody that happened to open 2 Lukes in their packs and stuff against them. Very limited card pools that we have available to us right now. So
yeah, it was really funny to watch. And then the next game, so I swapped out Dooku Phasma Trooper for Qui-Gon and Finn. So I'm like, all right, I've got the electroshocks. I'll take care of this, no problem. And he consistently kept rolling that 3 damage face that I couldn't do anything about. And that did not go well for me. And he figured out electroshock was spotty yellow character, so he pretty much killed Finn in like 3 rounds. And then I'm sitting on my favorite card right now that I can't play. I almost cried. It was very disappointing. But I also saw and played against a wow, it was weird. It was Phasma Veers Trooper, and this guy got lucky. So he actually had 2 ATSTs. He had, he'd bought multiple star decks, so he had 2 ATSTs. He had a Scout speeder bike, double TIE Fighter, and Veers in that deck is pretty nasty, actually. At least in a limited environment. I severely underestimated Veers. We'll just put it like that.
Yeah, I think if you get Veers, or if you have a ATST and Veers on the table, some hurting's about to come. So
yeah, it was. I didn't play it very long. We'll put it like that.
Yeah.
My friend Sean, he did a number on me as part of his Veers Jango deck. He made good use out of Black Market, which you can use Veers' effect to remove one of his dice and change a support die. Black Market counts, and he was giving himself double shields. He was giving himself double focus to make his TIE fighters hit me harder. And yeah, that was very hard to play around. That was a very neat combo that I had personally tried and didn't really get it to work, but Heaser got it to knock me out. I mean, you can even trade a Veers dice and turn it to the +2 range side, and that usually is all you need. It's a pretty cool combo.
Yeah, trading a Veers die for a double focus, so you can change your two vehicle dies to big damage. Is pretty cool. I like that.
It's no joke. It's no joke. So, all right, I wanted to ask you guys, what was your favorite card from the event? Like, you've played all these games, you saw this stuff, but like, what was the MVP of the event for you?
I was really happy to finally put Kylo's lightsaber on the table, and a lot of people have been a little like lenient on their lists, including that, mostly because regular lightsaber has redeploy, so it's a little more reliable, but man, Kylo's saber has 4 damage sides, and they just like, a lot of them just do incredible like damage. 2 of them are +3 well, one's a +3 damage, one is a pay for 3 damage. There's the standard +2, which is, you know, like completely acceptable, and then the special. I actually let one of my opponents take back a take cover action because I was sitting on a Kylo special side, and he was like, I'll play take cover, and I was like, you don't want to do that. And but yeah, Kylo's saber really shone, and so I feel like with my rant in a previous episode about the saber and having opened 2, it seemed like it was meant to be.
My MVP, I guess, was Awakening. One of the cards from the start that I just kind of wrote off until later and realizing how good it was. But I've really come around on that card, and the one point where my opponent had a first order stormtrooper with 1 health left and a shield, and Kylo's still on the table with like probably 5 or 6 health left over, and I was sitting with a 3 for 1 resource result on Rey's staff and +2 melee from another die, and I didn't really want to do the 5 to Finn and then 5 to Ren, and then going into another turn where he has both of his up against my one Rey left on the table, but was able to Awakening to do 2 damage to the Stormtrooper, which is enough to kill it, and then the other 3 onto Kylo on a second action to help spread that out more. So I'm really liking Awakening, and I'm probably going to slot at least one of them in any deck that I'm running a lot of modified side on the dice.
I actually don't enjoy that card because it's always played against me. So my buddy who was doing the Elite Skywalker Padawan, he used both of his Awakenings from the starters because he also magically pulled or traded for Luke's saber. And so he would see that +3 modified side, and he's like, exhaust Awakening for 3? I'm like, this is awful. So yeah, I respect that card way more than initially when we looked at it and we weren't totally sure what it was supposed to be doing. But my MVP by far is Electroshock. That card saved my bacon so many times, playing against decks that had a lot of modified sides, and then you see this like 1 base damage or 2 base damage, especially like I use this a lot against my buddy with the Luke Padawan, because we played like 3 or 4 games, and there were multiple times where he had like +3, +2, and then 1 melee, and so I'm like, Electroshock? He was like, oh, and of course I would force him to spend a card to reroll, and then I would Electroshock again, and he was like, oh, come on dude, that's just ridiculous. But it's so flexible. I absolutely loved being able to, for 1 resource, get rid of any card that or any die that was 2 or less, especially specials I didn't want to deal with. That was just a magical thing where you're like, oh, so that's a Millennium Falcon special. Cool. Electroshock? You're like, no, come on, bro.
I guess you gotta say it with that inflection every time you play it from now on, huh?
Electroshock?
Yeah.
I actually did hit a guy who was playing Poe with it, and he was that. I think that won me the game because he later revealed he had a Falcon in his hand that never hit the field. So I was like, oh, woo. Electricity from a droid saved my bacon.
Yeah, I looked at that card and like it's always funny to think of the quotes and like what the art represents. And I looked at Electroshock and all I can think of is get to the chopper. That's Chopper the droid.
All right, so as we wrap this up, we have a couple of shout outs this week. So Tiny Grimes has redesigned his podcast, The Smuggler's Den. It used to be a Star Wars LCG podcast. Now it is a Destiny CCG podcast. So check him out. He is on YouTube. We will have show notes. We'll have the link to that here in the show notes. And we also have a shout out to another new podcast coming out this week. It's called The Jedi Trials. And that's all we know. We haven't heard a show from them yet. So we'll put a link to their stuff in the show notes as well. And we'll see what they have to say about this, considering they are the enemy. Those Jedi scum. Anyway, do you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
I just want to give one last shout out again to Outflank Games. That place was awesome. Brian is a exemplary store owner. He also was nonplussed about opening a loot, so I managed to snag loot off of him, which was pretty neat. And as a show of support to their new store, I actually brought a couple of my extra Kylo Ren promos and did a random raffle. He rolled some dice, and one random person who picked a Rey die and one random person who picked a starter, rather, not die, for each were chosen. And it was neat. There were people who like were new to the game and it just came to check it out. And special mention to the gentleman who brought his little girl with him. When he got the card, he was pretty excited, and his little girl said, I get that, right? And he was like, heck no. And she's like, but I have the Kylo starter. So that was really cute, and I was happy to
Future Knights of Ren, yeah.
Yeah. Let the hate flow through that little girl.
All right, well, a couple of things we want to cover in terms of giveaways. So we are going to be wrapping up the t-shirt giveaway. All you have to do, if you haven't entered yet, go to Star Wars or swdestiny.com. We will put a link in the show notes once again, but just go to the website. There is a forum post. All you have to do is post where you're from and why you're excited about Destiny, and you have already entered for a chance to win a free t-shirt. This is a exclusive t-shirt from the FFG super duper pre-launch event like 2 weeks ago. So there were only 200 of them ever made. So if you want to go for that, check out the link. The other thing, we are still giving away Gen Con promos. So right now, everyone is going to all of their events. Next week, Australia and some European stores are getting their shipment in. So what we did is we pushed back the Gen Con promo sweepstakes. So what you have to do is go to our Twitter page at KOR Podcast, tweet us a picture from your event. If you couldn't make it to an event, just tweet us a picture of anything Star Wars, and then use the hashtag KOR Destiny so that we can find you. And that's all you have to do. And then 1 week, we're going to pull a name out of the hat, and we will ship you a Kylo Ren and Rey Gen Con promo. So don't miss out on that. And with that being said, I believe that's the end of the show. So this has been the Knights of Ren, episode 109. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It has been a blast. We are so happy that the game has been pre-launched, and we're going to be getting lots of games in. So talk to us on the forums, on Twitter, on Facebook. Let us know where you are, how we can get together and hang out and play more games. So have a great week, everyone, and may the Force be with you.
The Force, it's calling to you. Just let it in.